Hi, welcome to Waiter Nation. My name is Michael Fagan. I'm your host. I'm from Atlantic City. I'm totally stoked today for my guest, Jason Goldfarb. He's with Near Dark Entertainment. And if you've been to a nightclub and saw a DJ, saw a show, a comedian in any of the casinos or any of the venues really across the country, Jason was probably involved in it. He probably booked them. He probably coordinated it, or he's probably backstage while you're having fun. I dabbled in this industry about 10 years ago, so I'm really fascinated to get into this conversation. Next week, big week, Jennifer Hansen from the, where's she from? It's called the Enlightened Solutions. So addiction is a big problem right now during the pandemic, and she can help. She's got facilities in different places, and I'm excited to talk to her. Donna Albano, she's a professor at Stockton for hospitality and tourism. So we'll see where tourism is going in this city. Butch Bradley, a comedian from Las Vegas, has a special coming out. He's going to come on Thursday. I'm real excited about that because like your business, Jason, like comedians have such guts to get up there in front of everybody. And of course, Giovanna on Tuesday and Josh on Wednesday. So I hope you tune in next week. But Jason, thanks for coming on Near Dark Entertainment. I've been following you for a couple of years, so I see all your shows. Mm-hmm. Tell us about what you kind of do, what your job is, because I know you do an awful lot. But Near Dark Entertainment, it is a booking and consulting agency for entertainers, DJs, comedians. Yes?
We kind of handle a couple different things, mostly a lot of different bars, venues, casinos. They'll bring our company on where they don't have a dedicated entertainment staff, or they do, and they want to outsource some parts of it. So we kind of come in and handle different pieces from the booking end to sending people in to advancing shows, covering shows. We handle marketing for certain properties, certain events. So pretty much we're a turnkey like entertainment solution for an outlet that needs that.
So, but along the way, what a lot of times you do is you'll build a relationship with a certain entertainer or a big DJ, and then those venues will have to come through you, correct?
So we do book so there's certain DJs and certain acts that we exclusively represent. But in general, honestly, I would say that's a smaller part of our business. The bigger part of our business is kind of managing venues and helping. We've come into a lot of situations. There's actually a new venue right now that we're working with that I can't say which one it is yet, but that has entertainment that they're not happy with, and they want us to come in and kind of rebrand, rebuild their entertainment schedule and kind of get it in line with what their vision is. So that's pretty much what we do. We come in and we handle that for them. But we also we work with John Henderson. We handle all the entertainment buying for all his festivals. We've been doing Beer Fest for, I think, about 9 years now, since John kind of took the entertainment piece and made it a bigger portion of that event. So just trying to grow that every year as well.
So how did you, is it a family business? Were you a DJ or a musician, or how did you kind of?
So it was not my dad is a musician, but it was never a business. My dad just always played for fun, and but I was always around music. So I've always been in the music. I was in punk bands in high school that were locally popular. I used to actually put on shows when I was 14 and 15 years old locally in town here. I used to do shows at the bowling alley in Egg Harbor Township, community centers, VFWs. We would throw on like punk shows when I was a kid. And then I moved to Philly to go to Temple. And I started a band with my cousin and some of my other friends. And we ended up getting, I wouldn't say big, but we got, big on a small level. Mm-hmm. And we had an agent, we had a manager, and we put out a record, and we did the Warped Tour circuit. We toured with Coheed and Cambria, which is now like a huge band.
Yeah.
Then at the time, not so much, but we did that for a while. And then honestly, I think we burned out on it because we didn't get to where we wanted to get. And being an opening act, I don't know how familiar people are, but you literally make $200, $300, and it pretty much is enough money just to get gas to go to the next place. And as I got older, I kind of wanted more. So I moved back down in here from Philly and got a job as a stagehand at House of Blues when it opened. And I kind of worked my way up into the office, being a talent assistant, talent coordinator, and just kept working my way up. That when Caesars took over the property, I ended up being like the guy that handled all the talent at the venue. So, I got to work with a whole lot of cool people.
Were you buying the talent? Were you making the contracts for them and booking them, or were you coordinated once they got into the building?
So I did both. So there was a period of time so there was a bunch of transitions when House of Blues, since they came to Atlantic City. So initially House of Blues was House of Blues, like the original Dan Aykroyd group, like the original people that owned it. Then Live Nation bought House of Blues, the brand. And then Caesars licensed House of Blues from Live Nation because they wanted to be able to control the bookings and stuff like that. So we came in between the Live Nation and the original House of Blues time. There was this weird time where me and a guy named Peter Manning were kind of handling the talent buy. And Peter now works for Knitting Factory Concert and lives out in Boise. But he's pretty much one of my mentors in this business. I learned a lot of stuff from him because we were kind of thrown to our own devices in an office. It was just me and Peter kind of handling the buying, and I was probably 20 at the time, 21. I did just learning, calling assistants, trying to figure things out. And then as I kind of built my way through, when Showboat / Caesars took over, I fell into the role of the coordinator. So then I worked with the talent buyer. He booked the shows, and then I would book all the transportation. When the artist got there, I had to take them to the meet and greets. I did, all the things that pretty much from load in to load out, I would have to be there dealing with production managers, tour managers, and kind of hands and making sure everything happens the way it's supposed to.
Just to go back, when you said that when you were younger and you were traveling around in your band, and that's difficult. I had a venue 07, 08, 09. So I used to bring in bands every weekend. Yeah, you have to sell a lot of tickets too. A lot of venues will make you sell that 10 tickets and walk in with $100 to play, correct?
Yeah. That was at the beginning. We kind of like we personally had a thing where we did it in the beginning, and then we were like, we're not doing that anymore. Once we got a little bit more, we're like, we're not going to do that anymore. But in the very beginning, I mean, I don't know if you remember, there was a venue called Birch Hill up in North Jersey, where like Starland Ballroom is now, and we used to be like the opener there for a lot of shows, but it was really just a ploy by the promoters to try and sell more tickets. Like, you have to sell 20 tickets if you want to open for this band. And they usually would do it on shows that weren't selling well to try and push ticket sales and stuff like that.
Right. I mean, that's what I didn't know the business, and this was Facebook times for me. And I would go on and I would say, who's got how many followers do you have?
Sure.
And contact the band and bring them in for the headliner. I was amazed that I would say, hey, can you play on Saturday night? And they would say, what do you pay us? And I'd say $1,000. And they'd say, no. There was no there was never any price. I just had to guess correctly. It was like an auction.
Yeah, certain acts, it's weird. Like when you get into so when I deal with a lot of stuff for Beer Fest, like we're dealing with a lot of a one-off scenario. So like it's not acts that generally, I would say 9 out of 10 times the act isn't on tour. So we're getting them to fly out and play our show. And then, so you're going to typically pay a premium for that, because it's one thing when a band's routed and they're like, hey, we need a Philly stop or we need an Atlantic City stop. Can we stop there along the way? But it's funny. Sometimes the prices you think are so off. And with the big acts, if you're in the range, they'll come back and forth with you. But if you're not even in the range, or they'll just flat out say no. And that's when like the number just you're off, because if you say you're booking an act and you say, hey, 50 grand, and they're like, you know what, like we can make it work for 60, then you're in the range. But if you say 50 and they're just like, nope, that means like you're so far off that they're not even willing to play the game with you.
The phrase I always got in the emails was, we'll pass.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll pass on this. That seemed to be, but I learned a lot. And you're right, like how you went from being a band to being able to be a crew hand on stage. I had no experience, and all of a sudden I was hooking up microphones and speakers and taking them apart and working the soundboard. And you learn real quick, because the show's got to go on, and everybody comes in. 4 or 5 bands, a lot of personalities. Everybody's particular about their everything.
I mean, I will tell you that I didn't know nearly what I thought I knew before taking that stagehand job, because we came on and our first shows were Eminem, Counting Crows, and you're talking about acts that are bringing in 8 trucks of gear. So I mean, you're bringing in. We got a crew of 30 guys pushing up. You know, the load in at Showboat is a quarter mile. It's one of the longest load-ins in the country. 2 elevators from the loading dock to the stage. So you have 20 guys. You're building production. You're building video. You're flying sound. I mean, there's just so much involved that, I mean, I know enough now to have the conversation. And when I'm booking a show, I know what they're talking about, but I still don't know it on the level that, you know, really experienced guys in that business do.
Yeah, because when it's 5 minutes before showtime and there's no sound, or there's one speaker out, or there's something like you really got to know your shit to get in there and fix it, right?
I mean, we've even had issues like we had 9 Inch Nails at House of Blues early on, and you know, 9 Inch Nails had to have this certain haze before they came out. Like they had to have it. Well, the venue was so new, we didn't know the smoke alarms went off right when they were about to go on. And you can't just turn them off. Like the fire department has to come. They have to turn it off. So we had Trent Reznor backstage freaking out. It was like a whole, you know, that was one of our biggest shows we ever had there.
Of course. Did they go on after, like an hour later or something? Or
half hour later, he did go back on, but he wasn't happy. But he ended up being cool. He ended up coming back again without all the big production. And I actually, luckily, got to spend time with the guy. And he was he's a really good dude, actually. That was an interesting. That was one of the interesting nights. I mean, we've had so many people there. Even when I wasn't in that coordinator position, I mean, we had James Brown there, Etta James, BB King, Buddy Guy. Like even from the old school people. I mean, we got to, you know, I got to spend time with so many people that I probably, you know, I don't know. I probably wouldn't have ever thought I would ever gotten to make.
Right. So then what you do is you go from, what would you call yourself? Like a crew hand or a sound guy or a back
hand? I mean, I was literally like a union stagehand essentially back then.
And then you just started to make some relationships and build relationships to where Near Dark started.
So Near Dark came later. I mean, during the time at House of Blues, literally I was the guy. I was a young, hungry kid that just wanted to do everything. So anything they would ask me, like, do you want to be a runner, which is the guy that kind of runs errands for the tour that day? Do you want to sell merch that night for the band? Do you want to, I would literally take any job they would give me, where a lot of people would pass on these jobs. And then eventually when like some office opportunities became open, like, you know, entry level office jobs, in the talent office, I took those and then kind of worked my way up from there to when I became the entertainment coordinator for the venue when Showboat took over.
So I'll get back to that. So now, these days, since March, no large gatherings, concerts are down. I'm sure all your buddies, all your coworkers, colleagues, everybody, we hear about, you know, no bars and restaurants and hospitality, and there's rumors about your industry. But that's why I wanted to talk to you, because I don't see anybody on the news actually talking about your industry, how you're hurt, or, you know, a gig worker doesn't make a salary every week. He might make killer money this week, no money for the next month, and then go on tour all summer, whether you're a talent or crew, right? So what kind of struggles and conversations are you having with, you know, your industry and your industry people these days?
I mean, it's tough all around. I mean, you know, I have family. My cousin Eric is married to this guy named James. He's the monitor engineer for Beyonce. They just moved out of the area back to his hometown because they don't know when they're going to work again. You know, like people are in a tough spot. And I am starting to finally see now, apparently there is a bill being introduced called Save the Stages.
Okay.
But it's more really for venues than it is for crew and entertainers themselves. But it is at least a start that, you know, Congress is having a conversation about. Because really, they're saying 90% of entertainment venues can go away that are independently owned if something isn't done from a government perspective soon. So, I mean, it's tough. I mean, like I said to you earlier, my sister is in this business. I have a lot of close friends in this business. My cousin's husband is in this business. So it's tough. I mean, the thing that worries me is I think there's going to be a lot of good people that are in this business that are going to be forced to get out and maybe never come back in it.
Yeah, when I had the small venue, I mean, I wouldn't make any money for 2 or 3 weeks and then put on a really nice show. and make a few $1,000s, and that would float me through. My industry and being in restaurants, we live off you guys. You have a great DJ in my house, then I make money. You have a great show that comes in, you do something like that. So we always work together. So when I open back up with no DJs, no nightclubs, no shows, it's, we're running on half a crew. We all survive on each other. We take care of your crowds before they go to your show, and vice versa, right?
Sure. I mean, the tough thing is right now, the only good thing is, and it's not a good thing, but there is a small amount of stuff going on right now that's outdoor oriented. Yes. And great for now, but what happens after October? Then what? Then it's like you're talking about from October through March, if you're lucky, maybe April, before anything could really start happening again. And it's like, if they get rid of this 600 and it really doesn't come back, what are these people to do? I mean, I understand the perspective of like the people that would rather sit home because they can make more, but they have an opportunity of a job. What about people like us that don't have the opportunity? There is no opportunity. It's not like, to be honest with you, I'll make more money working. I'd rather be working. I don't want to be sitting home.
Jason Wade says a lot of venues will be closing if something doesn't change soon. Sucks for everybody all around. That's certainly right. Yeah. You're right. I've seen some things where they'll do a show and it'll be like a drive-in movie theater, so everybody will come in with cars. I've seen some things online where somebody, a DJ or a band will do something online. It's just, it doesn't seem like you can raise a whole lot of money
So Live Nation's doing it right now, and again, I don't know the finances behind it. I haven't done them, but I would envision it's going to be breaking even. You're probably happy because you're keeping everyone busy. People are working, and you're breaking even. But I mean, you got to build production. Yeah. You got the amount of people you can put in there. You got to pay the artist. You got to pay the techs. You got to pay the crew. I mean, I just think it's a tough way to make money. I think it's possible. I'm just not willing to take my own financial risk there and do it. I think it's, unless this thing goes on forever, it's just such a short-term solution. But if you're running a business like a Live Nation or something and you have to keep things going, I understand it. But for me, I wouldn't want to personally take the risk on a drive-in show.
It's funny. Restaurants throughout the country are all different laws. So here in New Jersey, you can't eat inside. In Las Vegas, you can. In Georgia, in Florida, it's pretty much the same around the country for your business, though, right? There are no large gatherings.
Pretty much the case. I mean, there's certain areas where they're doing shows. There's certain areas where, they're small, socially distant shows, or if a venue has a 1,500 capacity, they're going to put 400 people in the room and kind of spread it out. I did see, and I don't want to say it wrong, but there's a country right now where they're doing testing. Germany, yeah, where they're setting up different concert setups and they're seeing what the best solution would be, where it would be the least, the least way you would catch the virus. So I'm curious to see how that works out. Because like I said, if we are stuck with this thing and there isn't a solution sooner than later, I mean, I understand that our business isn't a necessity, but I actually kind of do think it's pretty important for a lot of people's mental health to get out and do something and get an escape. I mean, for me, going to a show is a mental escape. I can turn my brain off. I can have a great time. And I think the longer this goes on, the more important those kind of things are. So finding some kind of solution to being able to safely do that if we are stuck in this environment for longer than we expect, I think it is important.
Yeah, I figured originally, I thought, well, by the fall or by holidays, we'll be back to normal. And then, like Philadelphia says, no large gatherings till next spring. So that makes me think that way. Obviously, it's like a restaurant. You have to put a patio outside. All right, so you put 10 grand, 15 grand into a patio outside just for this summer. And then, it gets cold and you can't make any money. It's the same thing on your end. You put a whole bunch of money to do a few shows. Maybe you just break even.
Yeah, I mean, that's why, like, honestly, like right now, we're just trying to hunker down and survive right now. I mean, we're running the beach bar at Bally's is running right now, so we handle the entertainment there, and we do the beer garden at Brigada. They're opening up today, so there is some stuff happening, but it's, I mean, literally for our company, May through October is when we make 75% of our revenue. So you know, our 75% of our revenue is like 8% of what it would normally be, you know? So it's like, we're getting by, but it's tough. I mean, luckily we have a really small operation. It's me, a business partner, and we have 2 employees, but that's it. I mean, it's a small operation. We have other consultants and people that work with us, but as far as like full-time employees, we have a small staff.
I would imagine that when you get a bigger gig or you have work for a week or a month, you're calling subcontractors, you're calling sound guys that you know and crew guys and different things like that.
Sure, but I mean, we even use subcontractors in different areas. Like my sister will subcontract for us if we have a show and she's not working for Sebastian, and we have a show in Ohio and I need someone out there to cover an event, or, you know, things like that. Like, so I use different people all the time. I mean, from the 20 years I've been in this business, I have a lot of relationships in all different weird areas, you know?
You got to say, you got the guy with the most phone numbers can get the most work. Right?
Yeah, it's like specific areas. Though. Like I have a lot of, I mean, honestly, you'd be surprised. Like big agents at the William Morris's, the Paradigms, that they're getting let go. I mean, guys that I know that are really great agents, really great people, they're out of a job right now.
Yeah, I've seen that. Talking about your sister, I do follow her online, and she goes, I see her all the time with Sebastian. Sebastian's a hero to waiters because he makes it very well known that he was a waiter for 7 years while he was going down to the Comedy Store and doing his comedy. And now that he blows up, every time he goes on like the Tonight Show or something like that and talks about being a waiter, I get 50 messages the next day. Everybody sends it. They're like, this guy, and I know he's a hero for us. Yeah, thinking about William Morris and Paradigm, they have a lot of B talent too, not just the A names that are booking touring bands all around the country, right?
I mean, they have there's different sectors in those agencies. There's the guys that actually bring the talent on, so they're called like the responsible agent. So they're the one that like signs whatever Hall Notes or whoever. They're their agent, right? But then there's the festival division. So that talent agent is just going around to different festivals and selling them all the acts and different price range. And then there's the casino market, and those guys are just dealing with casinos. So, you know, right now there's no casinos running major entertainment. There's no festivals happening. So the festival and casino guys are for the most part getting laid off, and it's tough because a lot of these are really talented, really good dudes.
Right, and then you think there's no shows to book, so they're just walking into their office and you know, probably just keeping up with contacts, calling people, seeing how they are.
Well, you'd be surprised. I mean, so many of the agents I talked to when this thing first happened, they canceled it, rebooked it for the summer, thinking that we'd be good for the summer. Then they canceled this summer and rebooked it for the fall, and then now they're canceling the fall and rebooking it for next. I mean, these guys have probably rebooked the tour 4 times now that may or may not ever happen. No one even knows.
Right. So when you talk about a couple different things, I think when people take a look at your site, even myself, like a booking agency, a consulting, and then a tour coordinator. When you're a talent coordinator, do you coordinate the talent, or do you coordinate do you make sure like sound is ready, the stage is ready, the lights are ready?
So typically you have either a stage manager or a production manager for the venue, and then you have a talent coordinator. So typically the tech guys will deal with the tech guys, and then we would deal with everything else. We would make sure security knew the protocols that the artist wanted for that day. We would know, you know, we would make sure the dressing rooms are set up the way the car picked them up from the airport, the hotel room was set up correctly. Every detail from, you know, getting everyone their ticket counts to the passes. I mean, every detail to make the event run minus setting up the stage is pretty much what a talent coordinator would do.
How stressful is that on show days or when you're on tour?
On show day, it really just depends on who the artist is, like from a venue perspective. So when we were at House of Blues, I mean, we would have some acts come in that were just so easygoing and so chill, and it was just like honestly an awesome experience. Typically, comedians are really easy. They don't come in till 5 o'clock. They do a mic check. They go back up to the room. They're very easy. But then we would have, you know, I would say more the rock acts, the road warriors. They'd come in at 8 in the morning. They'd be miserable because they barely slept, and their touring life is probably harder than the higher end guys. So they're roughing it a little more, and they come in angry, and the whole day is kind of follows that vibe. You know, it's more of a grumpy day. So it would always be a crapshoot. But typically, I would know in the advance process. So before a show day, 2 months ahead, and then you follow up a couple times before, you're constantly in contact with these people, making sure all the details are solid from both ends, that everyone kind of is on the same page.
Let's see. Industry is essential long-term for our country. Entertainment is a big business and we need to escape. That's right. Yeah, definitely for mental health. That's why I have Jennifer Hansen on Monday, and she's has an addiction center, and addiction is going crazy now during this pandemic. And it's a lot because we're not able to be social with other people. We're not able to get these escapes in our life. Morning, guys. I have a live music 4 nights a week at my place, and they're shutting it down again. Hey, Monica. Monica, are you in California? I think I've talked to Monica before. It's sad that both industries who support one another are suffering so much. I think she owns a restaurant venue in California. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's the truth. I wonder, the big names and the guys that are making money, they might be bored, but they're okay. It's the little guy in every industry that gets hit harder. And we were talking about, good, nice to talk to you, Monica. Thanks for tuning in. So
middle guys too, honestly, like some of the acts, like, again, a lot of people, and I would understand because I don't know everything about every industry, but people hear numbers of what like acts make, but they don't really understand how it gets broken down. So someone might be like, oh, that act gets 50,000, and it sounds like a lot of money. But when a manager takes 10%, an agent takes 10%, you're paying for a crew, you're paying for a bus. Each guy might make $3,500 a night. Or so it sounds like a lot, but how many shows are you playing a year? How much money does that come out to be? That's my wife. Hi. But how much money does that end up being? So it really doesn't boil down to that much money unless you're in that really, really big league to make it, a living where you can afford not to work for 6, 8 months, maybe a year, maybe 2 years. No one knows really. That's the scariest part, is the unknown, I think.
That's right. And everybody in your business is probably filling out an I-9. They're not a W-2 and paying into unemployment. So when unemployment in the 600, I would imagine that a lot of people in your industry went to the pandemic unemployment assistance. Like that was different, that if you didn't qualify, you could get into that. Sure.
Yeah. Even us we're an LLC, so it's the same thing. It's like, we're not paying in the things like that. We don't take a salary. We make month to month. We don't know what we're going to make month to month. So
you're a commission guy, basically. You're making money on shows. It's a percentage. Everybody makes money on the top number.
Sure.
What's going on, John? Thanks. Hope. Mark Antonelli was supposed to perform at Resorts August 26th in Wildwood. It's horrible what's going on. Very not right. So that $600, what you said, I know it infuriates me as well when they talk. And I know a lot of people, that $600 is a little more money than what they were making before the pandemic, right? It's a couple months, and they weren't making a whole lot of money, so that doesn't bother me. But guys like me and you, it's against the law for me to work. You can't set up a show. You'll be arrested. You don't have another choice. You can't pivot. Everybody says, oh, well, you have to pivot. Yeah, but it's my entire industry. It's not one sector. It's not one part of what we do. It's everything we do.
Sure. Listen, me and John Henderson, who's one of my best friends outside of working together, like we've been brainstorming all the time saying like, what could we do? What is there to do? But there's just so many unknowns. It's like, is the government going to allow it? What's going to change? Are we going to spend a bunch of money putting something together, and by the time we get there, it can't happen? It's like there's so many unknowns. We don't even know what direction to even go in. So it's like pivot. I understand, but like, are you asking me to pivot and become a banker or something?
Yeah.
Like, is that where I'm supposed to pivot? Like, where am I supposed to pivot to? A totally different industry that I have no experience in? It's like you're asking me to start over in something else where I have 20 years of experience in this business,
Right. This is your career. Thanks, Marky, for your input. Yeah, this is a career, and a lot of people, sounds like you got to, when things are going well, sounds like you got a dream job. You get to hang out with a bunch of cool, famous people. You got a lot of stress, but it sounds like you get some fun stories at the end of the day.
There's stories in there, but I will tell you, it sounds more fun than it is. I will tell you that. The fun stuff is really memorable and really fun, but there's a lot of nights where you're just waiting for a phone call of something going wrong, and there's things that are completely outside of your control. And that's me being a control freak. That's a tough thing. Like there's, someone's late, someone did the thing I didn't tell them to do. There's all kinds of things like that happen all the time that keep me up at night, even when I'm not personally there. So I think it's, like I said, it's all that type of stress that keeps me up. And plus, this is a very political business, so you're always worried, like, am I going to keep this account next year? What's going to happen with this? There's so many unknowns always. Your contracts are typically year to year or every 2 years, so you're kind of always on edge no matter what, making sure that you got to make sure nothing goes wrong.
Right. Yeah, because somebody else is going to wine and dine your clients, you mean, or something like that, and then they're going to get the 5% or 10% or whatever kind of money there is. It is like, what about rent? Do you see a lot of people like yourselves, all of us, going away from having a brick and mortar business or an office, and then say, guys, we all got to work from home these days. Like, get on your computer.
I will tell you, we have an office. I haven't been there in 3 years. I work from home because there's just no reason for me to go in an office.
Right.
Our office is really for our office manager to handle all the paperwork, cut checks, make sure all the paperwork business side. But for me, I have my little home office here.
Yeah.
I have a room full of lizards and guitar stuff and weird stuff in here. There's no reason for me to go there. I can do everything here that I could do in the office. So I'd rather just sit in the comfort of my home.
Yeah, when people talk about pivot too, like you said, become a banker. I look online every day. I'm seeing what's out there because it's not in my industry. The three things that my fallbacks after the restaurant business, I acted for a long time. So I know I can get a gig as an extra, right? I can get a gig as an extra, make $300, $400, $500 in a day, to go up to New York and come back. That's out of the business, book a show. Yeah, I could go to Hamilton, get a place, book a show, bring some sound equipment in, make $1,000 on a Saturday night. That's out. So everything's out, and I think your industry is hit the worst out of everybody.
Yeah, I mean, us in the restaurant industry. I mean, the restaurant industry has their small amount right now, but who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? I mean, I don't know what the restaurants are going to do in the off season once things cool down. I mean, back to takeout only. I mean, I know most restaurants, you would know better than me, but from what I understand, I was dabbling in the idea of we were going to purchase a few people. We were going to buy a bar / restaurant. We ended up not doing it because of the COVID thing. But my understanding is the food industry typically relies on alcohol, so it's tough unless your business was designed to be a sub shop or a pizza shop or something to make money on takeout only, because all those margins aren't that great unless you have the alcohol and stuff like that involved.
Yeah, you're running. I think that what's going to happen, at least here in our area for a long time, is we're going to be limited capacity, 25-50%, and the bars won't open. So where I work, my bar won't be open. You'll have to just come in and sit at the restaurant, which the bar adds atmosphere. You can have a band in there. You can have some entertainment. So I think that's where we're heading. I know John Henderson too, your buddy, and that's all he does, right? Large gatherings. He brings people together in a social way to eat food or listen to music or drink beer, and he's great and inventive and grows and.
Yep.
And then you say, like, this is what I do. This is what I've built over the last 20 years, and I'm not being allowed to do it now. It's infuriating.
It is, and the toughest thing to swallow, and again, it's not just us, so I'm not crying specifically for the entertainment industry, but it's just like, it's not our fault. It's nothing that we did as a business wrong. It's like totally outside of our control, and it's tough to see people's businesses go down in any industry over things that aren't because they ran their business poorly. It's because of things they have no control over. So for me, that's the hardest thing to handle. Speaking of John, yeah, John is amazing. I mean, John's built, that beer fest is the second largest beer festival in the country. I mean, I went to that before I ever even knew John, when it was in its very early stages where there was 2,000 people there. And now, we were on pace to do 27,000 people this year. And we were actually working on building some new events that we were going to try and debut either this or next year. And, all that stuff's on hold right now. me and John jokingly, well, it's not jokingly, it's kind of serious. We have a hobby of like lizards. So we started getting into like, we're breeding lizards now just because it's not even to make money, just because it's already like a hobby of ours. And we're like, hey, we might as well start a business out of it because what else do we have to do right now? I mean, there's nothing to do.
Will lizards breed if you put 2 in a tank?
Well, we're like very selectively breeding. I don't know if you could see it back there, but you see that blue light back there?
Yes.
That's an incubator. So there's about 30 eggs in there of different types of lizards that are incubating right now. I've already hatched quite a few. We've sold some. You can't see it on the screen, but I mean, I have chameleon cages over there. You see that?
Yeah.
So I got all kinds of crazy lizards in here.
Well, it is a time that if you have a hobby or an interest that you've always had on the back burner, then now you can apply a little time to it. It's also nice if a hobby can turn into a little bit of money for.
I think we can make a couple bucks, but the problem is it's a long-term business. So like, even before this COVID thing, me and John were doing it for fun. We weren't doing it as like a way to make money, but we bought some high-end nice lizards and we were started the breeding selective lines and stuff like that. But you're talking years before these projects come together. By the time they breed, they hatch, they grow up. It's not, it's not something you could just turn and be like, let's make money now that COVID happened. It's not that. It's like maybe 2 years down the line, it could be in a situation where it would be a nice side hustle, but I don't think it's ever going to be our business no matter what happens with this thing.
Right. So back to on your touring days, my claim to fame as a venue owner is that I used to Motionless in White is from Pennsylvania, where I'm from.
Yep.
Right? So they used to. Pardon me?
Where are you from in Pennsylvania?
It's right outside of Scranton, or like an hour north of the Poconos. Actually, John Henderson, he grew up in a town about 10 miles from me.
My wife's from East Stroudsburg.
Okay, that's about an hour away. Sure, that's what a college is. So anyway, Motionless in White, that's like my claim to fame. That's what I tell and this was, like I said, 07, 08, 09. And They used to come like 3 times a year, something like that. And the place would go nuts because they were still like semi-famous there. But I can't even remember what I paid them. I mean, you're talking about like a low income.
Probably $5.
I might have given them a piece of the tickets, like at the door or something, but it wasn't. If it was 200, I would think that would be a lot. You know what I mean?
That's what it's like in that phase. Actually, the shirt I'm wearing right now, the Menzingers, they're from Scranton.
I had them there too a bunch of times. Yeah.
And that's the biggest band you had because they're getting 40, 50K a night before COVID. They're getting real money.
The Menzingers, I Am Avalanche, like it was a good time. A lot of, but I Am Avalanche, I'll tell you, I still remember they were. It was $800 for the night. And when
singer from the Movie Life, I think, in that band. I think it's the singer of the band, The Movie Life, which was they were a big pop punk band in the early 2000s, and I think the singer went on to start that group.
And then, but my point was there that when I paid them in the back room at the end of the night, I said, okay, so here's the breakdown. It was $800, and I think I gave them like $2 on every ticket or something like that. And they said, oh, is that what the deal was? They didn't even have contact with their agent. The agent was just telling me over the phone, give them this. I was always honest and had everything all laid out, but they were just happy to, pick up a venue on a Thursday night before they got to their Saturday night gig. But yeah, Motionless used to come in an old beat up van, and like all my buddies and busboys that I work with now, they're like, oh my God, they are so huge right now. They drive in buses and everything like that. But yeah, there's a promoter up there. His name is Joe Caviston, and now he's like you. He was a kid and he was working with me, bringing all these bands in, and now he's like you. Now he's blown up and he does a lot of different things with a lot of different venues and owners. Monica, California. What are some of the bigger acts that you work with now that you're booking in Valley Forge, and also you said in the Midwest, right?
Yeah, so we do stuff for Penn Gaming properties in the Midwest, Toledo, Ohio, Columbus, Ohio. We do stuff in Louisville. So kind of all over the place. Honestly, we booked a casino in San Diego, California, which is actually still open because it's a Native American owned property, so they have their own rules.
Rules.
Yep.
So they're calling you in Atlantic City, and you're calling your contacts, and you're booking them in San Diego.
So we even book the local stuff all over the country. So we're doing local stuff in San Diego. We're doing local stuff in Chicago, Louisville, West Virginia. I mean, all over the place. I have other guys, either employees or outsourced guys that we use that I kind of put on different accounts, and they handle different accounts for us so that I'm not solely, handling all the properties. But I mostly try to handle the stuff in market here because I can be hands-on with the staff.
Are you an agency where you have a roster of acts and DJs and
just DJs right now? I've stayed away, honestly, and I'll tell you why. I've stayed away from representing. First of all, the original thing, you have to be totally focused and dedicated on that, and I just don't have the time to do that. And it's really a gamble. I mean, 99.9% of the time, you're never going to make $1 just because unless someone breaks, there's just no money. And if they do break, they might leave you and go to someone else. So you're not even secure even if that happens. Right. And then with the cover band thing, because I represent venues and I'm bringing in their schedule, I always thought it would be a conflict of interest if I represented my own bands and then I'm shoving my bands into the schedule. I feel like it wouldn't be in the best interest of the client. So I've stayed away from that. The only thing we have done, and it's honestly more it's the opposite. We do represent DJs, but it's been a benefit for the venues because I can just bring in a roster of DJs. It's not the same kind of way where it's a conflict like a band would be, And if they don't like whatever guy we bring in, that's our guy, and that's fine. I could bring in another. I never push it. You know what I mean? If it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. But we've been lucky. Like our DJ thing has actually taken on a life of its own. We handle the Philadelphia Eagles. We do all their stuff for all their games. So our DJ is their DJ for all their games. We do a lot of privates, weddings. So we've gotten into that end of the stuff kind of by accident. Like I said, that was never really the goal for the company, but it was kind of a necessity, and we kind of jumped into that side as a necessity.
DJs in nightclubs over, say, the last 10 years, maybe, they've become the draw themselves, right? Their Instagram, their popularity, and then people, there's like Steve Aoki and Tiesto and stuff like that. But then there's the guys underneath them that are they personalities, or are you just bringing a DJ in?
So it just really depends on what the venue is, what their budget is, what their goals are. I mean, the Tiestos and those guys of the world, they're really producers. I mean, they're producers. I mean, I honestly think what they do on stage is much easier than what a local guy would do. Because a local guy's got to read the crowd, got to understand what's going on, feel. Those guys are like, they wrote a song at their house and they perform it for you on their computer on stage. You know what I mean? It's very different than what a local guy has to create a vibe, create an energy. So, you got the big names, the Aokis, the Tiestos of the world and stuff like that. They're going to sell tickets. You're going to pay them hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, it's a big marketing event for honestly, everything. Then you have like the mid-tier guys that can bring people out. But locally here, what we're typically doing is we need a guy that can play the mountain bar, that can entertain 2,000 people and do it in a way that, the property wants and what the vibe we're trying to create at the venue. When we play, when Haven was open, when we had guys playing Haven or Premiere or any of these places, it's really, opening spots. It depends on what the vibe is or what the goal is. But I mean, it's tougher to me, I think, to be able to totally create a vibe. I don't know if you've been to Mountain Bar, but we were throwing these pretty cool parties there called Emo Night Brooklyn. And it was the group out of Brooklyn. And these guys, they're selling out theaters all over the country. And they'd come out, they'd bring like a guest from a band, a guy from Taking Back Sunday or a guy from this band. And we would pack 2,000 people into the West every single time they would be there. And those things aren't happening right now either. So, I mean, those were all the kind of things. And they're DJs. They're not a band. They're DJs playing emo, and people are having a good time singing along.
Well, that's reinventing at least a little bit of the DJ business. Is it a good business? Is it a good business to become a DJ? Would you recommend, a young artist to say hone your skills and become a DJ? You can make a good living.
I think it was a good business 10 years ago, but I think there's just so many DJs now that you either have the producer DJ that's writing their own music. They're gonna, if they can hit, they're gonna be at the top. And then you have the guys, like we have guys on our roster that have been working as DJs for 20 years before there was computers, before, so it's hard to be able to stylistically or talent wise get to that level for a lot of these young guys. I'm not saying it's not possible. It's totally possible, but it's just now DJs are kind of, there's a million of them. Whereas when a lot of these guys were getting into the business, it was very niche. You know, it wasn't so much of the rock star DJ thing like it is today.
Yeah, it's just like starting a band, right? What are your chances of making it? And, you know, you can make a little money and have some fun, but getting into that. I have always heard that, at least in the casinos that we're paying the hundreds of thousands, it's not worth it. And that the money has been coming down over the last couple of years.
It has been. I think that industry, the nightclub, the big box, big DJ, big thing, I think that interest is starting to wane down quite a bit. I think it had its peak, I would say, like, you know, in the last 3 to 5 years, it kind of peaked. But this is like, these trends always kind of go, like, the nightclub, bottle service industry gets huge, then the live music industry dies, and then it kind of goes back and forth. I've seen it happen so many times where it kind of bounces between the band world and the DJ world. And I think we were heading back into the band world, actually. I think I was starting to see more of an interest in even live cover bands, live music. That interest was starting to grow again, where it was waning before, and the DJ was the king. I'm starting to see it go the other way, but, you know, who knows? I mean, I don't see the bottle service thing being that big after COVID, because I feel like that's, you know, that's an extra money type of business, and
yeah,
how many people are going to have, you know, the extra $1,000 or $2,000 to get a table? I don't know. You know,
Well, I think too, it depends. Like the millennials, they say that the millennials aren't. It's not. This was people that are now like 35 to 40. They were killing it in the nightclubs when they were in their 20s. But now the kids in the 20s, that's not where their interests are. They're just it's not.
Well, that's why I think we've been very successful at the Wild West, is that we've kind of done a good job with the, you know, the mid-20s crowd, and they're just as happy spending $3 on a Miller Lite and you know, coming out and just having a good time. They don't care about the showiness of a bottle on a table and the whole, you know, that's more of like a New York, LA thing, and it has been big in Atlantic City, but I think based off the backs of the Philly and New York people that come down here, and until they start packing it in down here again, I don't know. I don't know what the future of that business is.
Did you have anything to do with the summer concerts going on in Atlantic City and Warped Tour last year? And were you part of that in any way?
So that was a Live Nation event. They handle all the beach shows, but I do work with Live Nation from time to time. They'll bring me down and kind of have me either work with them or consult for them. Not that they need my consulting, but consulting of the market and the marketing. And so we did do the after parties for them for the Warped Tour last year. So we worked with the Warped Tour and Live Nation to put the after parties on last summer. My sister directly worked with Live Nation on those events. She's worked every beach show, I think. So she works directly with them, kind of setting up the VIP stuff and handling different things for them. But I don't generally work directly with Live Nation, but I work with some things.
Can you name drop for me who you worked with?
I work with Jen Corselli and John Hampton over at Live Nation.
No, I mean, you know, like the big acts that you work with, the people that you got to see, the comedians, the actors, the singers.
I mean, I didn't deal with that many people. Because really, I was mostly like dealing with the after parties. So we had the singer of the Wonder Years came and played the Mountain Bar for the first after party. We did this thing called emo karaoke, where we had a live band play, and we had different people come up and sing with the band. And that was the first night. Then Friday night, we did this party called Sad and Bougie at Haven. And that was kind of like an emo dance party, and we sold it out. I mean, it was huge. And then Saturday night, we did a party at Bally's Beach Bar, and that was more of an industry party, though. That was all the band people, the Live Nation folks, the Warped Tour, the sponsors, and stuff like that. So it was a lot of fun. We wanted to go bigger with the parties. There just wasn't the right venue to do it. Like, we were talking about having a bigger band do a concert late night and stuff like that. We just like the places locally that we looked at were just too small to make the numbers work. You know, like 200 people, 300 people. You can't make those kind of acts work on those kind of numbers. And I don't think the casino was interested in having that kind of show in their theater or something like that, you know?
Right. when and I have not a lot of experience in it, but just being on sets and being around, I see A-listers and the life they live, and I try to tell regular people when they're like, "Oh, they're regular," and I was like, "No, they do not live a normal life. They don't know what their electricity bill is. They don't know how to make coffee. It's a different life for the A-listers, correct?"
Yeah, I mean, the really big talent you can see, I mean, they typically will have a manager / tour manager that's with them at all times, and kind of before they walk into everything, everything's explained to them of why it's happening and what's going to happen. But I think that's really when you get to that really, really upper echelon of like act, like when we would have, believe it or not, like we had Oasis at House of Blues. And I remember I was just sitting backstage with the two brothers, and they were just like super cool, like eating McDonald's, like hanging out. Like they were just regular dudes. And I know they have this persona on TV of being crazy and mean or whatever. They were not like that at all. But then like Eminem, like you don't even see Eminem. He gets whisked in through the back door with a hoodie on, goes directly on stage, and then whisked right out when he's done. Like he's not hanging out at the venue. He's not doing anything there. They literally walk him onto the stage when he's ready to go on and walk him right out and off. Like those guys, their whole life is a schedule. They don't know what's going on. Someone's directing them everywhere to go at every moment.
Well, I always think too that like if a celebrity comes into my restaurant, like it's a big deal. Everybody knows the managers, the vice presidents, the waiters. When that guy goes to breakfast the following morning, it's a big deal. When he goes to every place Eminem goes, it's a giant deal. Whether it's to grab a coffee or a restaurant, or taking pictures and selfies. So it is.
It's got to wear on you no matter who you are. I think, like I've always said, like I would love to just be like the not famous rich guy, because that's like the best place to be, or a comedian that's like not that recognizable but is still successful. And you don't want to be the guy like Seinfeld or somewhere everyone knows who you are, because you can't do anything. Or Howard Stern or any of these guys. Like Howard Stern's 6'4", he walks in, everyone knows it's Howard Stern. It's like I'd almost rather be the mid-level guy that like no one knows who I am.
Yeah, it's nice. It's for me, the way I feel. I like to create. I like to get in those nervous situations where you have to overcome and you have to create something. And but then afterwards, I don't like to. It's not good when people come up to you and they're like, "Oh, like I'd just rather not."
Yeah, you have to be on 24/7. It's got to be tough.
Right, because then everybody says, "Oh, well, he's a dick." I saw him drinking coffee and he was grumpy. Yeah, well, every morning I'm grumpy drinking coffee. Not me, but I mean them. But that is a good trade. We'll make you rich and famous, and anything you want, you can have. Except you can't.
Because the minute that guy's an asshole, that guy's a dick, they're mean, whatever. It's like you can't win either.
No, and I know, when people talk about addiction or like child stars becoming getting into addiction later on in life, it's because that life, that attention, and people walking up saying, "You're great, you're great, you're great." It's like a like on Facebook, right? You get a little dopamine, you get a little like, it feels good, it feels good, it feels good. And when it stops, it's like, where's that good feeling? I gotta get that good feeling somewhere, So if you're not booking, or you're just on break, or you've been on tour every night for 15 nights in a row, and then now you're off for 2 weeks, it's certainly a down, right?
I agree. I mean, I haven't felt it on that level. When we were doing it, we were opening and we were having fun with it, but I haven't felt it on the star level. But I can understand how that would feel that way, because I'm not going to lie to you. There's part of me that loves this break mentally. I haven't had a break in 20 years. So just to kind of like not have to think about things every day and spend time with my son and like do things I wouldn't normally be able to do. But then when the reality kicks in and the financial piece and everything else, I do miss it. I'm just saying there is a benefit to it in a small way, but I mean, I've never been like, I'm kind of fine being alone and being quiet. I need a lot of attention. That's why I was talking to you. I generally don't put myself out there all that much. I've kind of been more of like I've always been like the sidekick guy on the side. Like I'm not the front guy that's out there, put myself out there generally, but I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Like for me, I don't need that attention, but there's a lot of people that do.
Well, definitely. Just like we were talking earlier, when you're gonna in some industries, whether you're an actor, whether you're a model or something, you go to an agency, you'll get picked up if you have a very large Instagram following, right? You got 200,000 friends or followers, they'll say, yeah, we'll sign you. You can sell our perfume for you. When you're booking a band, do you look for that type of following behind them?
I mean, honestly, more when I'm looking for opening acts or things like that for a big act. But generally, like being in the area, like I know who the big cover bands are. I know who the big national acts are. There's also services that we use. There's Celebrity Access. There's Polestar, and you can kind of gauge what artists do in different markets. So you can kind of say like, oh, we know this act can get a $40 ticket. We know they usually sell 800 tickets. Like, so for those acts, it's easy to tell. But when you're looking at the smaller stuff or the openers, or maybe I'm going into a new market, I'm trying to find new bands for that circuit, I'll look at that stuff. But like I told you, I don't put too much stock in it because it's not totally accurate. And there's some great acts out there that just aren't interested in social media. I mean, to be totally honest with you, I'm not that big of a social media person. I look at it, I follow it because it's a part of my industry, but if you follow me on anything, I don't put that much out there. I'm not going to like tell you my political views. I'm not going to tell you any important conversation. I might put a picture of my dog or my lizard or a great meal I had or something like that, but I'm not really that like engaged. I'm not going to be fighting with people and getting into that whole, you know.
Yeah, myself too. I do this online, and I really don't have an Instagram. A couple thousand followers. I never go on, and it's the same thing. It might be my age. I'm just not there. But another thing that we were talking about, and I agree 100%, is that the guys that make it are not necessarily the most talented. Right?
Yeah, I've seen. I mean, I know personally. I have friends that are some of the greatest songwriters, guitar players, singers, and like. These people were hammering it and never, you have to get lucky in this business. And if you don't catch the lucky break of the random guy walking into the bar you're playing or getting the opening spot on a show that some band liked, and it's like, if you don't get that one lucky thing, there's no difference between you and the guy selling out the arena. It's like, I mean, I could tell you My Chemical Romance used to be the opening act for everybody in Philly. The singer came to my apartment with friends after a show in the early days. Now they sold out before COVID. They sold out every arena in the country. It was sold out in minutes. And it's like, you couldn't have asked me to pick that. I wouldn't have picked them in a million years to be that band.
I think the same thing goes for actors. You know, somebody who booked a good show, a good movie, and it could have been anybody. It could have been anybody at that audition. It could have been anybody playing bands. There is. But I think that people who make it, they like to brag about the hard work they did ahead of time. And I'm not taking that hard work away because it is.
We did do hard work, but most people were doing hard work.
Yeah.
Very rarely, I mean, other than these idols and voices and stuff like that, it's very rare to see somebody that just made it and they didn't do anything to get there, that like they weren't really grinding at it and touring. I mean, the world's different now. So when I was in my band, we would have to tour the country, and sometimes you'd play in front of 10 people. You would drive 4 hours and you'd play in front of 10 people. But that 10 people mattered because that 10 people would tell their friends. Yeah. And then the next time you came around, there'd be 100 people. And it's like, that was the way to make it in the business. Now it's like, who has the most SoundCloud listens and who has the most views or Instagram. It's a totally different, it's kind of like this like marketing business now more than it is, about the music.
Well, sure. If I'm a venue owner and I see a band and they say, oh, I got this great band, the first thing I'm going to do is go to Facebook and Instagram, and I'm going to see how many followers. Then I'm going to see how many likes they get, that if they're real followers, and go through them. And I say, yeah, it looks like that, they've been on the road. They have some pictures. So it does turn into a lot of work off the stage for everybody to make it. And then it's just, you're right. Did the right agent pick you? Are you getting radio time? Did they blow you up on YouTube?
I mean, to me, it's the same way with like sports. I've seen so many good players. Like, what if you were like a great quarterback that was taken by a team that doesn't know how to develop a quarterback? Like, right. There's a lot of wasted talent in sports too. That like, why did that guy never do good? It's like, I don't know. Maybe if Andy Reid would have drafted him, maybe he would have done. You know what I mean? It's like, I feel like a lot of circumstance and a lot of business like kind of dictates the outcome.
Yeah, definitely. That's what like people say to me about this, like you got 20 likes yesterday, and I think 20 likes doesn't get it. You might think that's cool, that's cool, and I appreciate it and stuff. But 200,000 likes. That's what gets noticed. That's how you can monetize things. You gotta get giant.
Even if you follow guys like Joe Rogan, I mean, and he already was famous before he started his podcast. I mean, that podcast started out, it was nothing. I mean, it was a nothing thing. And then it just got a little bigger and a little bigger and a little bigger. And I think that's how, to grow the thing. So, like, let me ask you this. I don't know as much about your specific podcast as, I probably should, to be honest with you. Is it specifically hospitality business, or are you kind of like going over all different avenues?
No, I'd like to do more. Like, I wanted everything kind of relates. So that's why I wanted to have you in. That's why on Monday I'm going to have Jennifer in, which she owns an addiction center, like a recovery center, which has nothing to do with hospitality, but I'm interested. And
sure.
If I have any choice in my life, I don't in a restaurant. I can't choose the menu. I can't choose but this I do. So I'll talk to who I want to. It's not monetary. I don't make money. So
I think that's good, though. I think whenever you do the things that you want to do, it'll the outcome generally is the best, though, because you're not doing it for a reason that isn't legit,
Yeah.
Joe Rogan, who I am a fan of, I grew up a Howard Stern guy, and I still listen, but he's gotten older. It's not kind of the same as it was, but those guys always just did whatever they wanted, and it eventually worked because it's they did what they wanted. They didn't care what anyone else thought about it.
I love Joe Rogan that you can watch an actor. You can watch Iron Man one day, a Navy SEAL the next day, and then the following day is a scientist. You know, and he's a comedian. If you ask him what do you make your living in, he would say I'm a stand-up comedian. Which to me, up until 2 or 3 years ago, I didn't even know he was a comedian. I thought he was an actor and a Fear Factor guy and a UFC guy, right?
Yep. Yeah, I think he's the most known for being Fear Factor guy, probably until now. That's how I knew him. And then, the podcast and UFC, I think it was the combination of those two things together. I think if UFC didn't exist and he wasn't doing that, I don't know that his podcast would have ever taken off. I feel like it was that combo there that made it work. But I mean, he's a smart guy and he's open to listening, and he's interested in a lot of things, and he doesn't really care if you're interested or not. He's just don't listen if you don't care about this, person I have on. And I think that's important, to not cave to the one.
That makes it organic, right? You just say and that's the one. I mean, I do this now because I'm not working, so it gives me a little free time. But also it's organic. Yeah, I don't care. I don't get political because I don't want to have those conversations with anybody. I'll talk around it a little bit, but I think somebody gave me flack 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I just said it's okay if you don't listen, man. I'm just sitting in my kitchen, know.
I would say my only thing would be, and don't take this the wrong way, my only thing would be if you're going to expand more outside of the hospitality industry. I think the name could be confusing to people. So I had a friend when I said I was coming on, he said, "Why are you going on a waiter thing? I don't understand." And I'm like, well, he talks to people outside of that world. But I would say if you're going to grow outside more, maybe you add something to the – I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there that maybe from a branding perspective, if you're going to get more out of the waiter of the hospitality industry world, that maybe it is confusing. I don't know. Maybe it's just that person. Have you heard that comment before?
100%. But for the last 5 years, I've been doing it. And I don't know if you're familiar. So I would go on location and I would interview a waiter. But I interviewed a lifeguard on the beach that was a waiter, and I just wanted to show talent and different things like that, and started expanding.
I remember when you interviewed John and Chronic and them over at Tennessee.
Right. And I did Elvis and Tom at Vagabond back, a couple years ago, and a lot of different places, So Waiter Nation was I just wanted the chefs get all the attention. I wanted to put attention on waiters.
I'm just saying, if it grows beyond that, I feel like. You know what I'm saying? If it grows more into entertainment people, different personality people, just throwing it out there. I'm not criticizing.
I was looking up the thesaurus yesterday for some different words for the title, because I could change the title. But the nice thing is, I mean, I don't have a huge following, but it's hardest to build an audience in the beginning, right? So once you have an audience, you don't want to throw it away and start a whole new page from 0 followers.
Well, maybe you don't have to change. There is ways, though, to not change the page and keep the.
I think you're allowed 2 or 3 times to change the name. So I could name it, something else. And
again, I'm not knocking the name. I'm just saying if it goes into if you get more into the entertainment industry and you know, different fields and stuff like that to make it
Right.
I don't know, more general.
Carl says, interview a movie star. I've talked to producers in Philadelphia, and I said I always wanted to talk to like stars that were waiters. You know, like go back to a restaurant where they were actually a waiter, and then talk to them about going from a waiter to be a star. I always wanted to do that, but that's enough about me. I like talking about your stuff in your business, but I appreciate it. What else? What else is? How do you think we'll fare in the next year? Next summer? You're going to do shows next summer? It's going to be
terrible, man. My friends will tell you I'm more on the negative side of things in general, but definitely here. I will tell you that when this thing hit in March, I told everyone that I work with, and I've gotten a lot of callbacks saying you were right. I said I don't see anything really happening in the next year. I was like, I didn't see us coming back. Everyone's like 2 weeks, 2 months. I was like, I don't see it. How is this virus just going to get eradicated in 2 weeks? I just knew it wasn't going to happen, and I just knew that was like kind of a not scare the crap out of everybody so they freak out kind of thing.
Well, I think that you know, there's mixed reviews about is it dangerous. Some people think no masks and it's not really dangerous. It's no more than the flu. And some people think that it's a plague. I don't, you know, back and forth. But I know one thing for you and me, as long as the case numbers are high, we don't go back to work. Because everybody else can debate whether it's serious or not. But if there's 70, 50, 40, 80,000 cases a day, we don't go back to work.
Luckily, I will say, all politics aside, the state, we're at least now. I mean, the initial, to me, like people were saying New York, Jersey were bad, but March was the surprise. No one knew the virus was coming in March. Yeah. Now, you know, that we knew, I feel like no matter what a governor does right now, there's no win, because you close everything down and people get sick and die, then you're bad. You go the route, you close everything down, and people can't work. It's like no matter what you do, it's terrible. There's no win. Honestly, there's no way to win in that situation.
I think so too. I think that there'll be a massive transfer when people vote. Everybody will just vote out who was there because nobody did a good job, and they're like all frustrated and not working. But
I mean, I don't know. It's the weirdest. You couldn't have, if you told me in January this is what this year was going to be, like, I wouldn't have believed you in a million years that like the whole world would shut down. There'd be no one going. Like, I've never imagined this happening in my life. I never even thought about it. Maybe I'm oblivious, but nothing that was on my radar.
It's like a fantasy movie. You could never, you know, and it'll change. We'll stop spending money like we used to spend money. We'll start saving money. We'll make decisions differently because now we know, hey, all of a sudden one day everything can shut down. And you're like, that's ridiculous. No, it's not. Back in 2020, it happened.
That's what me and John Henderson were saying is like, we were general. We're pretty like spendy guys. I'm not saying on big purchases, but like, I don't know, if I want this toy or I want a lizard, I'll go out and get it. We're like, now I'm like very like, I don't want to spend a penny on anything right now. And it's like, while that's good for me right now, that's not good for the economy because we want people to have extra money they can spend, they can do different things. And it's like, if that goes away, that hurts everybody. I mean, that's horrible for everybody. I mean, the one thing that I'm honestly could see, I don't know if you've heard this, but they're saying like people are leaving New York and coming down here like at a crazy rate right now. And it's like, how does that affect like the businesses in New York? If people aren't going back to their offices because they're working from home, who goes to the restaurants, who goes to the bars, who goes to the corner store, the bodegas? Like, it's like it could have an effect.
Yeah, the trickle up or trickle down. Yeah, I think 5 years from now, 6 years from now, the whole landscape of business and restaurants and entertainment and everything will change. I don't know how much in one degree, but it has to, because you have to think of new ways to make money. You have to think, are you paying rent? Is that ridiculous? Just too many things, you know?
I agree. It almost feels like the city life, like people are like, after COVID, after everything else, like I actually think that I think people are going to move more to the suburb life now, out of the big cities. I think that's going to happen after this, because I think when people were stuck to their apartments, they had nowhere to go. There was no yard to go sit in. There was no release. At least out here, I'm in Absecon. I can walk in my backyard. I have grass. I can, like, my kid can run around the yard. I can get some energy out. I mean, what if you're in a 500 square foot apartment in New York? What do you do?
No, I've thought about it too, to go back home to PA.
Yep.
And take my computer and do the podcast for fun and work in a restaurant. It's a lot cheaper living over there. And when restaurants open up, make a living and, have a backyard and look at a mountain and just, forget about Atlantic City and all the hustle and bustle like that. I guess everybody is. What's the final words? What's your any final thoughts? We forget anything? You want to add anything in?
No, I'm just like I said, I'm just really, honestly, less for myself. I really feel for, like, the local. I have so many friends in this business, from the cover bands to DJs to girls that are models and dancers and all these people that we work with. Like, I really feel for these people. They put so much time and effort into honing their craft, and what do they do? Just like we were talking about, do they find a totally new career? What do any of us do? It's a tough spot, but listen, I'm hopeful. It's just I don't see anything to be that hopeful about in the immediate future. I think that the business will come back, and when it does come back, I think there will be a huge appetite for the entertainment business. I think people, even in the small amount of things we have going on right now, they're busy. People want to be out. It's just, until people feel totally comfortable, I don't think you're ever going to see it come back to what it is. But I just hope we all the good people in this business can survive to make it through to get to the point where we can get back. I just don't want to see all these really talented people have to move on to another industry. And
definitely. I would. I enjoyed talking today. I could we could talk till 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon if it was just me and you. We should meet up sometime. I hope I get to talk to you in person and meet up sometime somewhere and have a beer. It'd be
sure. I really appreciate you having me on, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you too. Everybody who's watching, good luck to you if you're in either one of our businesses. I'll be back on Monday. Thanks so much.
All right, thanks for having me. Take care.
Yeah.